Are you worried about the wire cages on your rabbit's feet and you're wondering, do I need to put some kind of resting mat in there for the rabbits to get off that and give them some relief from the wire? That's what we're going to discuss in today's video. I'm going to get it all cleared up for you. Hey guys, welcome back to another Slightly Rednecked video. Again, my name is Chris. If you're not familiar with this channel, I help you to produce your own meat, eggs, and vegetables from your backyard, your balcony, your deck, your garage, or heck, even a spare room in your house if that's the way you want to do it. Today we're talking about resting mats for rabbits. What are they? And do they absolutely need them? First of all, starting off with, what is a resting mat? Resting mats are just something that you put in the cage that gives the rabbit a way to get off of the wire. It gives them a little bit of relief on their feet so that they're not, putting all that pressure on their feet all day with the wire bottom of the cage. They've got something that's nice and soft or solid that they can get off the wire and give a little bit of relief to their feet. And I'll show you some examples of what you can use for different resting mats here in just a second. But do they absolutely need them? Well, it's debatable. I'm going to say yes and no. The reason I say no is because my rabbits really don't use them, not on a regular basis anyway. If you look at my rabbits right now, my buck is sitting right at the edge of his, and I'll pull the camera in here in a second. We'll take a look at that. But he's sitting right at the edge of his. The other two rabbits aren't anywhere near their resting mats. When I came out here a few minutes ago before I started talking, he was just laid out on the wire. He wasn't anywhere near his resting mat. So, I find that that's generally the case. When I come out here and I check out the rabbits, they're usually not on the resting mat. They're usually just right over in the side of their cage, somewhere just kind of hanging out on the wire. They don't seem to really notice the resting mats or use them whatsoever. So that's why I say no, you probably don't need them. The reason I say yes, you probably do need them is for a couple of reasons, really. One is they're so stupid cheap and easy, why not put them in there? It's just one extra thing, and I think it kind of depends a little bit on the individual rabbit, whether they're sensitive to that wire or not, as to whether they'll use them. So it's such a, like I said, stupid, cheap, easy thing to do. Why not just throw them in your cage? If your rabbit wants to use it, they can. It's an option for them. But on the flip side of that, if you just don't have them, if it's gonna be a week or two before you get any, don't stress about that either. It's not that big of a deal. If you do have a rabbit that has problems with sore hocks, you probably shouldn't be using wire cages anyway. It's more than likely a genetic issue. I've addressed that in previous videos before. And your best bet in that situation, especially if they're meat rabbits, is to probably cull that rabbit so you don't pass those genes on to other rabbits and in your colony, in your herd, or whatever. So that's really my thoughts on sore hocks. The resting mats alone are probably not going to prevent those. But let's talk about what are resting mats. What can you use for resting mats? Let me put it that way. And I've got a couple of different types of resting mats that I'm using here. Let me show you those real quick, and then we'll get on to some other ideas on what you can use. All right, this is my newest resting mat. I just started trying to use these out, testing them out a little bit. It's woven grass, and you just buy it. I mean, that's all it is a resting mat. I'll leave a link down below where you can pick these up. At first I thought, I'm not so sure this is going to work that well, because I thought the rabbits are just going to chew this up like crazy. And it's been in there for about a month, and you can see she's managed to do about maybe 1.5 rows of this woven grass here, and chewed it up a little bit. So I'm thinking, this is actually a pretty good option. She's eventually going to destroy it and chew it up, and I'm going to have to get a new one, but they're not expensive. They're really cheap, and it kind of serves a dual purpose. It gives a resting mat, a place for her to sit on to get off of the wire, and it also gives her something to kind of chew on, something to kind of play with and entertain herself with. So really, I think this is a pretty good option for a resting mat. Like I said, whether she uses it to lay on or sit on, not very often. She kind of moves it around the cage a little bit. I very seldom, if ever, see her actually sitting on it, laying on it, or anything like that. Let me stick this back in the cage and I'll show you the other ones I'm using. Okay, the other style of resting mat that I'm using is kind of hard to get out of the cage, so instead of bringing it out of the cage to you, I'm just going to bring you into the cage to it. And you can see my buck, like I said, he's sitting back there in the corner and just sitting at the edge of it. But these are a plastic resting mat. They've got these little tabs right here that hook into the wire, so they kind of hold them in place. And I always put them back in the back corner because that seems to be where the rabbits kind of hang out a lot. But again, he doesn't use it all that often. They seem to work pretty well. They're fairly durable. Eventually, over time, they do break as well, but for the most part, they're pretty durable. I'm going on about, I want to say about a year and a half with these right here, and they're holding up pretty well. Okay, so there's a couple of ideas, and those are specifically made for rabbit resting mats, the grass woven ones and the plastic ones. There's a lot of other different things that you could use for resting mats. I have seen people use like just a rubber dish drainer, like the dish drainer drying mats that you would put down on your sink whenever you do dishes and set them on there. They have little slits in them to let the urine and things kind of run through. That's not what they're made for, but it works out great for that. The only concern about that is I'm not sure what kind of plastic they're made of and if the rabbits will chew on those or not. It may be something you kind of have to keep an eye on, but they're pretty cheap. You can pick them up at like any kind of local, big box store, anything like that, and they're pretty easy to come by. Another thing, ceramic tiles, especially in the summertime, make a great resting mat. You just get the big ceramic tiles that are, oh, they're pretty good size. I don't know, 2 foot, maybe 24 inch. Well, probably not that big, but 12 inch by 12 inch, something like that. The good thing about ceramic tiles is they serve a dual purpose. They do give them something to get off the wire on, but they also stay fairly cool. If you put them in the shade like this in the summertime when the sun's out and it's hot as can be, those things stay pretty cool. So they give the rabbit something kind of cool to get off of and get on. So they may use it for that reason, not to relieve their feet from the wire, but because it's nice and cool. Kind of like if you let your dog out, they go and find a nice section of concrete that's in the shade and lay on that, or a nice section of bare dirt in the shade and lay on that. Same kind of concept. Some other ideas for resting mats for your rabbits, like I said, the woven grass, you could weave that yourself if you wanted to. Just make sure that if you're going to do that, you use a grass that's safe for the rabbits to eat, which is pretty much just about anything. Stay away from nightshades, which would be like your tomatoes, a lot of your vining plants, some of those kinds of things. But other than that, any of your grasses are pretty much going to work well for that. You could use wood as a resting mat if you wanted to. The things you might want to stay away from there, I'd use like maybe a 2x12 plank or something like that that's a solid piece of wood rather than plywood or particle board. Those are glued together and the rabbit is almost definitely going to chew on it. So it's not a good option to put something that has a lot of glue in there that the rabbit's going to chew on. Cardboard would make a fine resting mat as well, and it's super cheap. Just cut a big section of it out and stick it in the cage. The rabbit's going to destroy it, but just regular corrugated cardboard, no glossy finishes on it or anything like that. Get all the tape off of it because they are going to chew on it and you don't want them eating that tape or anything like that, but it would make a fine resting mat as well. So you can see there's lots of different options for that. That's the reason why I said at the beginning of this video, even if your rabbits aren't using them, why not just throw them in there just in case? There may be times where they do want to use it, and they're simple, they're cheap, they're easy to come by, so why not just go ahead and include that? So I'm going to conclude with saying, yes, I do think that they are necessary, with the caveat of, if you don't have one, it's not that big of a deal. The rabbits will be fine without it. I also want to add one more time, if you have a problem with sore hocks, a resting mat's probably not going to fix that. If it's a meat rabbit, you're probably better off calling that meat rabbit, getting it out of your colony. Just eat it for dinner. I know it sounds cruel and it sounds horrible, but sore hocks is an incredibly painful disorder for rabbits. And if you don't know what that is, that's the sores on the bottoms of their back feet. It's incredibly painful for the rabbit, and my personal belief is that that is primarily a genetic disorder. So even if you do change the cage, put them on straw or any of those kinds of things, they do tend to still have some problems with that, and it's best not to pass those genes on. To have to treat that over and over and over again, that rabbit is obviously suffering. So it's probably best to not just worry about putting a resting mat in there, but to just call that rabbit, put it out of its misery so it's not going to suffer from those things. That's my personal thoughts on that. You guys may disagree with me on that. There are some ways you can treat sore hocks, but that's a different video altogether. Leave me comments below, guys. Let me know, what are you using for a resting mat for your rabbit? Do you find that your rabbits use them on a regular basis, or do you find that they're largely unnecessary for your rabbits? Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you're brand new to my channel, hit that subscribe button there to stay updated with my content. Leave me a comment below and let me know what you'd like to see in future videos. Thank you guys again, and as always, God bless.